West Denver. Sleep deprived and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't agree with that.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
Love you, man.
God help us.
I want to bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff Hunt and Bill Thorpe. The Jeff and Bill Show on News Talk 710 KNUS.
Seven a.m. in the Mile High City on this Wednesday, July 2nd, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Let's continue the conversation. We're talking doctor-assisted suicide. There's a lawsuit coming from disability rights groups here in Colorado challenging doctor-assisted suicide, saying it discriminates against people based on disability because you have insurance companies, others going, it's a little cheaper if you take this pill as opposed to getting the cancer treatment. Let's go to Dwayne and Divide. Good morning, Dwayne. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Yeah, morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. I have to preface by you didn't pay a $10 cover or 2-drink minimum. So please, if you laugh, don't blame me. On top of all this, I watched my mother go through the last throes of dementia. And the last 3 years, she didn't know who I was, but she was certainly verbal about how much she didn't care for me. And I sat there and watched and everything else. And I felt, why is she still here? Jeff, she wasn't going to come up with a cure for cancer or anything else. And I loved her. And even though it was stressful the last few years, it was certainly something that I kept going, why? Now, my father, his Agent Orange cancer took him in 6 weeks. He went from 185 and a strapping buck down to, 80 pounds. And it was more difficult to watch that than the other options. Am I the one that's going to be capable enough to sit there and say, please put a needle in the arm, double extra shot of morphine, and a little lidocaine to make sure this all happens? I'm not the one, but we've got to come up with something better than the way we're treating our elderly.
And I guess, where do you draw the line, right? In Europe, you've got people doing doctor-assisted suicide that are 25 years old based on depression. Well,
they haven't lived my life. Let them live my life and see what depression truly is.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
There,
but I think we would both agree that if someone's 25 going through depression, doctor-assisted suicide shouldn't be an alternative, right? It shouldn't be something that's offered.
No, not at all. I agree with you 1,000% on that. But we've raised the last few generations to where, I have a hangnail. It's time for me to end it. Oh, Bobby doesn't talk to me anymore. It's just so hard to go to work, and I have to do this, and and I cannot believe this last generation that's coming out as to how petrified they are of having to deal with anything. And it's anecdotal, but it's like, 3 out of 20 are like this way, and it's like, come on, it wasn't that hard. Come on out and join us who sat there and went through real things. Then you can sit there and complain and cry and wonder why in the world you're sitting there with a scar up your arm that you have to try and explain to somebody who's going, really? That happened to you? No, honey, I'm lying. Yeah, I went through things. All right? People need to sit there and absolutely have shock to the system sometimes, just become better people. Don't you think, Jeff?
Yeah, Dwayne, I do. I appreciate the call. Thank you, and thanks for sharing. I mean, what we saw on both sides of this issue is very personal conversation. So, Dwayne, thank you for sharing your personal perspective. And I don't want to not validate that. That's really important. What he went through with his wife. Question I have. And he gets it, is where do you draw the line? Because you just keep going. Okay, is poverty an excuse for doctor-assisted suicide?
Yeah.
Depression?
And the thing is, I think we can get to a point, again, if you were having a reasonable discussion, to where someone that is going through depression is different than someone that is aged and going through dementia.
Correct.
And because the person that is going through depression still does react and can come out of it. And there are other treatments other than just ending the life. At dementia, there is no cure. And the other problem that we have with dementia at this point in our medical care is it doesn't get better, and we do not alleviate it. It just continues to get worse.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the part that we have to have that in the discussion. And yeah, I agree with you that when you start advocating for assisted suicide based on depression, we've lost the plot of the novel. We've lost the original reasoning as far as why we felt this was necessary, because we didn't originally, and I'm using the royal we as a society, not saying that all of us said this was right, but I'm just using the royal we for the discussion, that as a society, we said we need to show compassion to this slice of people that are going through these things that make their life so unlivable. At the time, depression was not included in that. That wasn't the reason. Some of the medical issues they were dealing with can lead to depression, but it was not the causal reason behind ending your life. And that's the differentiating point. And you're right, Jeff, that when we start branching out and broadening the definition as to what will qualify, we absolutely and 110% cheapen life. And I think you make an excellent point that when you allow someone the ability to end their life based on depression through help from a prescription that a doctor signs off on, why can't someone else that is at home self-medicate? And what I mean by that is, why can't they just kill themselves? If it's okay for the doctor to write the prescription for me, I can self-medicate at home. So you're saying suicide's okay. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So compelling issue. Appreciate everyone being a part of that. We're going to pivot now and get into this issue with regards to this band. By the way, that conversation, and I want to say this as we wrap up real quick, conversation was rooted in personal experience and philosophy. I think as a Christian, it's something that's explicitly banned from the Bible, rooted in the belief that we're not the authors of life. God is. And this is why both abortion and suicide are offensive to the author of human life, which is God himself. All right, now we can pivot. We're going to talk this in this upcoming hour. Anti-Israel band no longer coming to the United States. This is like the opposite of the Beatles. Bob Vylan, this kind of British punk rap duo, when you hear this audio of what they were singing, yeah, Trump administration's like, you ain't coming to America. We'll talk about that. Now it's time for News and Comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, News and Comment.
Good morning, Wednesday, 63 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 93 today. It's going to be beautiful. News is presented by the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. Now is the time to stand with Israel. Call 800-301-1188. That's 800-301-1188, or go to 710knus.com and click on the big red Stand with Israel banner at the top of the page. Our top story, DJT's one big, beautiful bill is headed for a debate on the House floor. 47 says we'll make a fortune this year if it passes. The House Rules Committee voted to advance the GOP bill early this morning after a 12-hour meeting on the procedural rules. The Republicans on the committee sided with Democrats. Two Republicans sided with Democrats against the bill, citing their concerns with increasing the federal deficit, of course. The House is scheduled to convene in minutes. The president threatening Japan with a 35% tariff if a trade deal is not reached with the U.S. by next week's deadline. And 47 says we'd be in much better shape if it wasn't for Fed Chair Too late, Jerome Powell.
No inflation. Our country's strong. Our interest rate should be 3 points lower. If our interest rate was 3 points lower, that's almost $1 trillion in cost. And it's done just by the signing of a pen. But we have a moron at the head of the Fed. He's a moron.
47 urging Hamas to accept what he called the final proposal to a 60-day ceasefire with Israel. DJT says Israel has agreed to the U.S. conditions and that he hopes it brings peace to Gaza. Israel has not yet confirmed that it has agreed to Trump's conditions. One person has been hospitalized after an officer-involved shooting in Montbello. It happened in the 4300 block of North Del Rio Court just before 11 o'clock last night. Police Chief Ron Thomas says 2 officers found a group of people in the street with an object used to shoot firework mortars into the air. A man reportedly pulled a gun from his waistband and was shot in the leg. He was taken to the hospital and in serious condition. The jury in the Sean Combs, also known as Diddy, sex crimes trial will resume deliberations today. On Tuesday, the New York jury told the judge they reached a verdict on the 4 charges dealing with sex trafficking, but are deadlocked on the racketeering charge. The judge has instructed them to reach a verdict on the remaining charge. Paramount, CBS's parent company, agrees to a $16 million settlement in President Trump's lawsuit over the edited 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Khan during the election race. The presidential election race. Funeral plans set for televangelist Jimmy Swaggart, who passed away Tuesday at the age of 90. It's 60 in Parker, 62 in Lakewood, 63 in Denver. And now, the Jeff and Billy Show continues. Blake Olson, News Talk, 710 KNUS.
A typical way to start July here for Denver in the Front Range. Warm temperatures, partly cloudy skies, and a few thunderstorms. Highs today near 90. A few widely scattered afternoon and evening thunderstorms. Lows tonight near 60. Warming to the low to mid-90s Wednesday. An isolated thunderstorm late. A better chance of thunderstorms, 80s and low 90s Thursday. Upper 80s with a few late-day thunderstorms for the 4th of July Friday. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free, no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
All right, did you hear about this anti-Israel band called Bob Villain that was at a music festival called Glastonbury? And here's the audio from their performance.
Free, free. All right, but have you heard this one, though? Death, death to the IDF. 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 Hell yeah, from the river to the sea, Palestine must be, will be, inshallah, it will be free.
Well, they ain't coming to America. They're supposed to play Denver. Did you see that?
Yeah.
In October.
Yes.
They're supposed to play, and now their visas have been revoked. The United States saying, essentially, we're not going to allow you to travel around our country yelling that stuff. Is this a violation of free speech rights? Can anyone come here and just say whatever they want? We just have to allow it to happen? Or is there a responsibility on leaders like Secretary of State to say, we're not going to allow you to travel around our country shouting stuff like that? Death, death to the IDF and free Palestine, and from the river to the sea, I have argued on the show, are all calls to violence. When you had the shooting in Washington, D.C., perpetrator was yelling Free Palestine. When you had the burning of Jews in Boulder, the perpetrator yelling Free Palestine. Okay, we are at a point of peak anti-Semitism in this country, led by the left. And to just allow someone to travel around the United States in concerts chanting death, death to the IDF is wrong. And I applaud the State Department for revoking these visas. Now, Bill, I want to bring this up because some of the arguments in the New York Times is like, well, rock and roll's always been controversial. This is what the Rage Against the Machine and those types of things. When you have actual Jews being attacked on this political issue, and for a band to yell death, death to the IDF and from the river to the sea is a perpetuation of violence against the Jews. And I think it was right for Bob Vylan's visas to be revoked. What are your thoughts as a music guy? That's why I want to bring this up today.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. And I'm not 110% familiar with Bob Vylan. I had to go when I saw this video a couple of days ago. I went up there, and it was interesting. They did it at Glastonbury. Glastonbury, huge festival in Scotland. One of the largest music festivals inside of Europe.
I'll be honest, watching the video, though, it looks like a miserable...
Oh, yeah. It's a miserable experience. Yes, yes, absolutely, 110%.
Because it was like... from my perspective, it was all Palestinian flags throughout the entire thing.
No, the whole idea is the experience of going to Glastonbury is miserable. Absolutely 110% miserable. Because where it is held and the time of the year inside of Scotland, it's a little cold sometimes during the nights and the mornings. Also a touch damp. So lots of mud. Lots of dirt. Basically, if you go to Glastonbury, the clothes you take with you should not come home. They will never be clean. Throw the shoes away. Throw the socks away. Don't. You're going to get mud and dirt in places that you probably shouldn't. It is a mess, but it's an experience. So that's what Glastonbury is. And I was surprised with how quickly the crowd chanted along. I know that, the Bob Vylan fans, and again, I'm not one, and I'm just becoming familiar with them and their work. I went through their back catalog to see what they do. Kind of like, okay, what's your sound? What are you doing? How are your lyrics normally?
It seems like a Rage Against the Machine type of thing.
What do you think? I think that's an easier comparison. For me, I hear a combination of D'Antwoord and Royal Blood is the two bands that I hear, because they're doing some stuff lyrically and presentational wise that is very clear to D'Antwoord, but musically they're closer to Royal Blood in my opinion, based on where they're coming out of as far as the guitars. And what I don't like about the comparison to Rage Against the Machine is based on what I was hearing in the lyrics from Bob Vylan, and especially the chant on stage. Rage is more cerebral. Rage is by far more cerebral at understanding. Rage Against the Machine was against the mechanisms of war per se, and that's what they're talking about. But Rage looked more at the motivation as far as why. They're just looking at, hey, we need to go for death for this military group. Rage would be asking the question about, why do you support this group that is doing these things? Is okay that they're doing them in your name? That's where Rage would go on this one. In part because, and again, I could geek out about Beto, who's Zach De La Rocha's father, the fact that he's a really subversive Mexican artist, and the poetry and artwork that he did, that's where Zach gets his influence, and that's why he's such a leftist. Lots of influence there. We can go really deep on what they do with Rage, but that's why they're more cerebral. Here, it's very base level hate, and it turned my stomach to hear them chanting death to the IDF. And when he got to, I know you and I disagree a little bit on the Free Palestine, but when they get to from the river to the sea, for me, that's a call for genocide. And Correct. That's a bridge too far. And that is a bridge even too far for a band as liberal as Rage. That's nowhere, they would never go close to that. And even Tom Morello of Rage Against the Machine has been very vocal about, he disagrees with some of the treatment of the people in Gaza, but he doesn't go as far to say, yeah, the IDF should die. That's the difference, is you're calling for the death of citizens. So much too harsh, much too, I don't know how to say this. A lot of violence, a lot of anger that is just, and again, it's anti-Semitic. It gets to be anti-Semitic as well. When you start saying from the river to the sea, that to me is the bridge. When you're talking about genocide, you're talking about, killing the Jews. That to me becomes very anti-Semitic.
Do you have a right to say that in America? Yes,
yeah, sure, absolutely.
You do,
yeah.
But because there's a distinction in first speech law when it comes to hate speech, which, is allowed, and imminent calls to violence, right? So if you're like, in this case, I think death to the IDF is a call to violence, and that could be restricted. Free Palestine is borderline in my mind, but the BBC is reporting Prime Minister Keir Starmer called the words appalling hate speech. The BBC, which broadcast the festival live, has removed the Bob Dylan set from its iPlayer. The British network also told
I went and looked for it yesterday, so it was missing. Yeah, I went and looked. Yeah,
the Associated Press that has issued a very strong and discriminatory language warning label during its live stream of the event. Festival organizers released a statement on Instagram condemning the stunt. Glastonbury Festival was created in 1970 as a place for people to come together and rejoice in music, the arts, and the best of human endeavors. I mean, when you watch that video, I go, this is a leftist political rally. All the flags are Palestinian or Lebanese. Is this Scottish? Irish?
Well, it's in
UK?
Scotland. Yeah,
Scotland?
It's in Scotland, but it's a lot of English.
Music festival to rejoice in music, arts, and the best of the human endeavor, and it's chock full of Palestinian flags.
Yeah, I would
look like something out of Iran's Central Square.
But I only saw that's the only time I saw it was the visuals here. At other visuals and other performers, I didn't see that many of the flags.
Fair,
so
very
that's
fair.
the thing is I didn't see.
Okay.
So I think this was kind of like a group that found that they knew these were the guys that were going to sympathize with them, and yeah, they were trying to make noise. They were trying to be very punk, but I don't think they thought it all the way through. Again, not very cerebral. And you're right, when they start chanting death to the IDF, yes, that is a call to violence because you've identified a group of people and said they must die. There's not a lot of interpretation there. It's not. And I understand the idea that, yes, we do have free speech in America, and I will protect your right to say things that I find offensive. Absolutely. But coming to America is a privilege. And for a variety of reasons, whether I agree with them or not, our administration, and again, I am using our because it is my administration, regardless of whether or not I voted for it. It's still my administration, can choose who they want to let in and who not to and why. We can debate it, but they're free to choose. And on this one, I'm not going to argue with them. I'm not going to. While I fully support the band's free speech rights to say this, it's free speech, not free consequences. And if the consequences of your free speech is to have to cancel the tour here in America, okay. Now, if they had come to America and we start grabbing them as illegal immigrants or want to throw them into jail, now I've got a little more of an issue because now we're doing it, in my mind, based on free speech and we're acting. So we're not going to punish the free speech, but we don't have to let you in. We don't have to give you access to this platform. That, to me, seems fair. While I support the free speech rights, again, it is not consequence-free speech rights. So there are consequences of your actions.
And Joan points out that the chant, is in light of a reality that Jews are being killed in America.
That's a good layer to add, Joan. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Right?
Yeah, and that is here in America, which is not happening at the Glastonbury Festival nor in Scotland. So they don't have those attacks, and especially here in Colorado, we have had attacks on Jewish supporters, and we've had attacks in this country on Jews. So when you have a band that is going to come here and advocate violence against a group of Jewish citizens, yeah, it's okay to rethink that. It is perfectly legitimate to rethink whether or not they should be allowed to tour America. If they were an American band doing it, Oh, this is a whole nother ball of wax. But because they're a foreign band, yeah, absolutely. You can prevent them from coming here.
The U.S. State Department, upon revoking the band's visas, said the Secretary of State has been very clear the U.S. will not approve visas for terrorist sympathizers. We don't need to give them a platform. And I think, some of the text messages are going, hey, we do embrace free speech in this country. What about the Nazis in Skokie?
Yeah.
Is the name? Outside of Chicago, that the ACLU defended at one point. Yeah. Aren't they a violent organization? Haven't they called for the death of Jews? And to your point, in my response to Jay from Louisville's texting in these questions, should we give, for instance, Iran a platform to tour the United States and promote anti-Semitism?
Yeah.
We don't have to do that.
No. And that's the issue, is the foreign band. It would be different if they were an American band that had gone to Glastonbury and had said this and now are coming home and have a scheduled tour. For me, that would not be an administration role. But if the venues wanted to cancel the tour, or there was pressure on the venues, that's American. But since they are a foreign band asking for permission in this country, and in my opinion, they have identified a group of Jewish citizens and chanted for their death, along with giving voice to what I believe is a call to genocide on the nation of Israel, yeah, I think it is fair. I think it's absolutely fair. Just like if there was someone that, for whatever reason, was coming to America and going to go on a speaking tour and talked about, America went wrong when we got rid of slavery. What we need is a lot of slavery, and then was going to run down all the reasons that the black people and minorities are tearing apart our society. If that is a foreigner that is coming here on that speaking tour, I can see why the administration could say, we're not going to let you come here and do that speaking tour. Totally fair, because yet you don't have to have and allow that access. While I agree with their free speech rights, it doesn't mean free of consequences.
Feel free to join the conversation. We'd love to hear from you. 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. Would the Biden administration have revoked this visa?
Ooh, that's a sticky question.
I don't think they would have.
I don't know. Here's the idea, is it would depend on, and this is what I would feel is, I think for this one, I don't think the Biden administration would be as quick. Okay, this is what I say. I believe that the Trump administration was anticipatory in this one, meaning that, hey, we heard this, we're not going to allow this. I believe the Biden administration would have taken a reactionary position. And what I mean by that is they would have gone, let's see if anybody's really mad. And if so, let's see who's mad. If it's only the people that voted for that other guy, the Trump guy, maybe we're not so worried about it. But if some of our people, if AOC, Ilhan Omar, some of those people, they start getting mad, maybe we will. Maybe we will then. I think the Biden administration would have taken a wait-and-see reactionary approach and would have only taken this step if they felt political pressure, if they saw polls. And that's why I will give the Trump administration credit on this one for being anticipatory, for not waiting, saying this is what we feel. And I think that is a stronger leadership role. Yeah, but I think you're right. I'm not certain that the Biden administration would have, unless there was political pressure from the left.
9757 texting in, for no political reasons, I'm okay with Bob Vylan not coming to the U.S. because they're terrible musically. Maybe that's a... yeah.
I'm curious if they've listened.
The administration appoints Bill Thorpe to review all music and determine whether or not you're able to come to the United States.
I don't want to do that. There's a thing. You know what I played
last
night?
You have a Simon Cowell side of you. You'd be good.
Yeah, I do. Okay, this is just a total tangent when we talk about different musical genres, etc. Guess what song I played last night at Bar Trivia? I went deep for this one. This is old school, 70s, 80s. This is old 70s stuff. I reached way back in the catalog for a specific reason, and I played Up, Up, and Away by Fifth Dimension.
Yeah.
I had a couple of older people in the audience go, oh, and I could see them perk up, and I'm like, yes, it's for you. So, yeah.
Heard that song in 20 years.
I know, exactly. That's why, but it was kind of a surprise for a particular reason. But, yeah, I'd love to be in charge of, what bands we let in and what bands we don't, because this one, again, I understand what they're doing. I'm not necessarily a fan, but some of the other stuff, it's solid. Guy's got decent flow. He's very socially conscious. He's got one song which is about the racism that he has faced inside of England while growing up English. One of the lines talking about all the neighbors that kept telling him to go back home to his own country. He's like, I was born here. And that's kind of the whole frame of the song is what he was. And so I get what he was doing. And I like the guitars in the background. But this, for me, bridge too far. Bridge too far when you're up there.
And when it's a bridge too far for Bill Thorpe.
I know. What the hell does that mean?
Steve from Cortez, Biden administration would have had them play in every state, and Joey would have gotten front row seats.
That's funny.
AOC,
I can't argue
for
very
sure.
well with that. I can't argue with that very well.
And the squad, as they're called. All right, let's talk Dan Caplis law. If you've been hurt in an injury case or in an accident and you have an injury case, you need to hire somebody you can trust. That guy, Dan Caplis law, he's right there with us on the values. A former seminarian, the son of a police officer, Dan has dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. Dan is also believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado state history. Dan Caplis Law is the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Caplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. So if you need Dan's help, give him a call. Here's the phone number, 303-770-5551. 303-770-5551 or hit dancaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, C-A-P-L-I-S law.com. Sounds like Bill supporting the Trump administration in revoking the banned Bob Villain's visas from the U.S. tour that was going to bring them to Colorado, now canceled. Secretary of State saying the U.S. will not approve visas for terrorist sympathizers. Bill saying free speech, but it doesn't mean you don't have consequences. And in this case, America doesn't have to give you a platform. Do you agree? Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Or is this a violation of free speech? 720-819-5115. Jay from Louisville saying there's now an ideological filter for admission to the United States. This is not American. What do you think? Love to hear from you. 303-696-1971. Text line 720-819-5115. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Some real leadership coming from the Trump administration. This British band Bob Vylan is their name. Here is this band at a music festival in Scotland, and this is the reason they ain't coming to America.
Free, free. Alright, but have you heard this one though? Death, death to the IDF. 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 Hell yeah, from the river to the sea, Palestine must be, will be, inshallah, it will be free.
Marco Rubio going, nope.
No soup for you.
No visas for anyone who's a terrorist sympathizer. You're not going to come to America and travel around our great country spewing that type of anti-Semitism, calling for the death of Israel's military, and from the river to the sea, which is genocide of the Jewish people. And in light of the fact that we're dealing with real violence against Jews in America, and in both cases, the perpetrators yelling "Free Palestine" as they either shot or lit Jewish people on fire. And so the administration stepping up and saying, you're not going to come to America. Now, some of those on the text message line saying, okay, well, are we admitting there's an ideological filter for admission to the United States? And the question, or the answer to that is yes, there absolutely should be. If you're a Russian communist, you shouldn't be given a visa to the United States. If you're an Iranian terrorist, no visa to the United States. If you're a Chinese communist, no, we're not going to give you space to travel around the United States and give lectures about how great Chinese communism is.
And Jason from Denver wants to add whoever sings Baby Shark on the list, too. You can't come either.
For damages you have brought to
damages.
This country.
Yeah, it's and the thing is, I understand the idea of filters and free speech, and I appreciate the critique of, do we have an ideological filter for admission to the U.S.? Yes. And we've sort of had an ideological filter for admission to the U.S. for a long time. Under the Cold War, there was an ideological filter. There were filters before then. There were times in our country in which we drastically restricted immigration from certain demographic groups, certain racial groups, certain countries weren't allowed to come here. So yeah, we've had filters like that for a lot. So this is not necessarily, in my mind, unusual or that anti-American. And it is difficult for me because I do support their right of free speech. I would not, because they're doing this at Glastonbury and they're a performer, I wouldn't necessarily have any consequences for what they said on stage, because it doesn't seem to be a crime
in
per
the sense
se.
like jail time.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, but England doesn't have these free speech rights.
Yeah, it's totally different. Yeah, totally different over there. And God forbid they did something like this in Germany. That would be a whole nother kettle of fish.
I mean, there's lots of examples of conservatives getting picked up for what they post in Europe.
Yeah, so there could be some issues here. But for me, it's the idea that they have identified a specific group and called for the death, and especially the death of Israeli citizens, because the IDF are Israeli citizens. And that's why I pushed back earlier on the critique of this being closer to Rage Against the Machine, because, again, Rage talked about dismantling the industrial war machine, but not the idea of killing the people. I mean, there are lines in Rage songs that talk about how warehouses fill up faster with guns than we fill libraries, how we tear down libraries, but we fill warehouses of guns. They talk about that, and they talk about the mechanisms that are behind the war, but they don't sit there and say, well, what we really need to do is identify this group of people and kill them. Not something they're doing, even though they do talk about, Leonard Peltier and some other people, as far as feeling that the justice system, even America, did them wrong. However, didn't call for the idea of death per se, and they didn't chant genocide. And that's when you get to From the River to the Sea. To me, that is a chant of genocide, and that's different. And because they are a band outside of the country, we can decide who we want in and who we don't want in. Seems perfectly fair. We don't necessarily have to agree with it, but I applaud, and this is strange for me to say, I applaud the Trump administration for being anticipatory. I do appreciate, again, regardless of whether or not I agree with it, I appreciate the idea that they went ahead and did this, not waiting to see what direction the wind was blowing. That to me is more of leadership. And they do that a lot. But yeah, sometimes I disagree with the direction they're going, because just because the leader says, hey, let's go this way, if it's off a cliff, not necessarily the best. But that is a leader. This, I applaud the administration being very anticipatory, and they did the right thing.
Lots of text messages coming in on this one. Breadman saying, if you don't love America and hate the sewer you came from, you have no business coming here in the first place. Yeah, I've always wondered about that. I mean, we have lawmakers who have come from terrible countries and then spend a lot of time complaining about America while leaving those countries behind.
Yeah, the only thing that gives me some pause there is that in those countries, many times you don't have the mechanisms necessarily to impact or affect change, where the gift that our founding fathers gave us is we do. We have the ability, unlike so many other countries, to enact change. And many other countries have, basically taken up our ideas and allowed some of the change, not all of it, but they have a lot of the same ideas because of the power that we gave to the people. So I can see leaving your crappy country, coming here and still being mad about how the system works because you have the ability to change it. But I get the point.
Well, speaking of change, how about we change some stuff in your kitchen?
Hey, great idea.
Mountain High Appliance. Our friends there are celebrating Independence Day with exclusive savings from GE Profile, where you can save up to $4,000 on select kitchen packages. Enjoy Mountain High's price match guarantee and special financing options. Summer is the perfect time to take advantage of these limited time offers and upgrade your kitchen or start that remodel. When you think appliances, think locally owned Mountain High Appliance. All right, we'll continue. It's Wednesday, July 2nd, and Bill is applauding the Trump administration.
What the hell has happened? We've gone through the looking glass already.
You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Am I drunk? This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
It's funny. Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Bill, we like to give prompts where prompts are due.
Yes.
And like a dog on a bone, Kyle Clark is going after Jarhead Polis and his birthday bridge.
Yeah, look at that.
So the other day, they had these testimonies before this committee, and there were two people that testified in support of the bridge. Okay, just two. One of them has now backed out. Did you see this?
Really? No. What?
This is wild. He's saying that he feels used by the Polis administration for supporting this bridge. It's one of the advocates that came from the disabled community.
Yeah.
Well-known accessibility advocate that was reached out by the Polis administration about the birthday bridge.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be kind of accessible for people. But to your brilliant point, Mr. Thorpe, it's not straight.
No.
It's a wide.
Stupid winding
It's going to take a
thing.
long time for those in a wheelchair to get to the
Ridiculous.
state capitol from the Civic Center Park because you're going to be winding all around.
Yes, all over the place.
And he testified in support of it, but then realized he's being used.
Oh, no.
By the Polis administration. He feels humiliated.
Oh, wow.
And has recanted his testimony and apologized.
Oh, goodness.
Believing that his testimony may have given some cover support to those that wanted to approve this bridge. And so now he's speaking out against it.
Oh, wow.
And
That's
sat down
crazy.
with Kyle. And it's a good interview.
Oh, that's crazy. I have not seen the interview yet. I'm going to have to go watch it this afternoon. That is wonderful. And again, props to Kyle over there at KUSA for sitting down with the advocate and talking about why it felt used. And yes, I'm surprised that the politicians will find someone and use them as the spokesperson and maybe mischaracterize or send them out in front of people when it may not be what they want. And also, I applaud the advocate for thinking about, yes, the concept and idea about a bridge that'll help disabled people is great. Maybe not this bridge. That's fair to say the idea and concept, but when you see it done, absolutely horrible. I mean, there's a point where, you could say to someone that, I know that you love meatloaf, and I know that your favorite dessert is tiramisu. And someone goes, yes, I love meatloaf and I love tiramisu. And they say, that's why you're going to love our new Jamba Juice meatloaf tiramisu shake. No, awful idea. Horrible. You've taken something that I thought was good and you've bastardized it and created this monstrosity that isn't going to be good and I'm going to hate anyway and going to probably make us throw up. And that's what I'm hearing so far, just in the early blush of this, is that, sure, an accessibility way for people to get across the street would be easier and better. But this is not what they were thinking.
And don't forget that Jared could have put on some of his charm.
Yes, that's true. Does he have charm?
He sure is frumpy. But he could have said, sir, Mr. Thorpe.
Yes.
I sure need your help here to get this birthday bridge, this big, beautiful birthday bridge through.
Yes.
Can you come down and testify on my behalf? Sure, Mr. Polis.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to do that. And lo and behold, the advocate gets down and realizes, well, I'm the only one on this side of the room.
Yeah, what's happening here? How come I'm the only one? There are not more of us?
Wait, what is going on here? And to his credit, afterwards goes, I done messed up big.
Jeez. I think, word of the wise that if the Polis administration, before he leaves office, asks you to testify and wants you to get behind one of their causes, hand him a small hammer and say, here, break this glass first. Just see if he can do it. Just because we, had to struggle with that earlier. So I'm saying that, let's just see
put the glasses on when he did that.
Yeah, I know. Which I'm like, jeez. And this coming from I grew up riding bikes without helmets, which explains a lot. And I watch people put on some of these safety glasses for stuff, and I'm like, oh man, mistakes I've made.
Let's talk L&L heating and air conditioning. It's going to be warm today, 94 degrees. If your air conditioner is struggling in this heat, the best people to call, take it from me, by far, L&L heating and air conditioning. They came out, put a new AC and furnace in at our house. It was one day, no stress, personal service from start to finish. And like I said, they're not a corporate operation that's going to nickel and dime you. No emergency charges, $0 trip fee. And if you get a new furnace or air conditioner installed, they'll provide a free programmable thermostat or carbon monoxide detector. They provide price match value guarantee on equipment. They'll meet anybody out there. They'll engage in free estimates. They're licensed and insured and have a 5-year labor warranty. Everything works great. Our family couldn't be happier. So if you're looking for fast, honest, and reliable service, I highly recommend L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. Here's their phone number, 720-851-1691, 720-851-1691, online at bestdenverhvac.com, bestdenverhvac.com. I'm sure glad we called him. That number again, 720-851-1691. Coming up in the 8 o'clock hour, just in about 20 minutes or so, Gabe Evans is going to join us, Congressman from Congressional District 8. How is he going to vote on the altered big, beautiful bill? Because it went from the House to the Senate, had some changes in the Senate, now coming back over to the House, and there's an effort to try to get Jeff Hurd and Gabe Evans not to support it. We're going to hear directly from Gabe coming up in just about 20 minutes. Don't miss it. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
The bill is bigger. Is it more beautifuler? We'll talk to Gabe Evans. This is KNUS.